Hey all, Mark Vega, Run Long After 60 podcast. I'm so glad you're here. You know, the podcast is relatively new, so almost every episode includes something that hasn't been done before on the podcast. I'm really grateful for the first time we get to speak with a lawyer. As a lawyer who's been doing this for more than 3 decades, so has our guest. He retired. Used to be a trial lawyer in Detroit. You know what that means when you're a trial lawyer? It means you're a storyteller. 69 years old, about to step into the next age group category at 70. But this guy is relentless, deliberate, smile on his face storyteller. Paul James Johnson. Instagram handle, I am Paul Johnson. Let's bring up his numbers, because he's got great stories to tell. Now, he ran marathons for years and years, and he liked to be competitive. He wanted to be fast. But after growing a little older, he realized that maybe doing something different might work. So he heard about these trail runs and trail marathons, and ultimately he heard about ultras. So he signed up, towed the line, ran some long distances, but he discovered that the 200-mile distance was his sweet spot. He also loves inaugural races. And so, Arizona Monster, check the box. Cocodona, check the box. He's going to attempt his 4th Cocodona next year. He's going to attempt his 4th finish next year. Bigfoot, same thing. He just doesn't stop, this guy. And shortly after this is published, he's going to run across the Florida Peninsula. I mean, across the whole thing. It's the coolest graphic you've ever seen. Makes everybody want to do it, I think. Then before the conversation was over, as he's telling me stories, he weaves into the connected tissue of the ultra running community. How does he do it? He invites me to be a part of his pacing team for Cocodona next year. And I'm in. I'm running Bigfoot in August, first time ever, and first long race like that. He had plenty of tips for me, and I just felt the embrace of his storytelling, the authority of his trial wisdom, and ultimately, he seems like a pretty joyous and happy guy. That's the people in the ultra community who we embrace and who embrace us. Okay, that's enough of me. You're gonna love this one. I'm so glad he's here. I'm so glad you're here. If you like the stories or you're picking up the vibe that I'm putting out, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. Leave us a comment, share the content. We love to interact in every way. I first started hunting down Paul James Johnson because he was one of 3 people who finished the Cocodona 250 last year in the age group of 60 to 69. Stephanie Irving was my first guest on the podcast. She was the only woman to finish. She was also one of those 3. I think she beat Paul too in that instance. I mean, came in a little before he did. Okay, that's it. You ready? I'm ready. I am ready. I think it's time. It's time for Paul James Johnson. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We made it. Welcome to another edition of the Run Long After 60 podcast. We've got Paul James Johnson with us today. Paul, thank you for joining. Good to see you.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Sounds like a fun time we're going to have today.
I think so. It's going to be good. So this is the first time, a lot of first times for me in this one. The first episode that I'm talking to a lawyer. Now, I know this is not a legal podcast, and we don't have to dip our toes into that too much, but when you're talking to another lawyer who's also over 60, who's been doing this for a long time, sometimes I think our approach might be very unique. But I don't want to even talk about that right out of the gate. Here's the coolest thing I discovered about you, Paul, when I went online. You started this podcast, the Get Some podcast, and You have a couple of series just started, really. There's something you call the Choose the Unknown. And you are a storyteller. Now, as a trial lawyer, that's good, but you're a storyteller. So you have a
Thank you.
handful of these episodes on Cocodona. So how did you come up with doing a podcast? Why are you doing it? And you really celebrate the area and you know the history. So talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been kicking around the idea of doing something. I basically stepped away from the full-time practice of law about 3 years ago. I still dabble in it, and I still do a variety of work for clients and for others in the area of legal mediation, but had some extra time on my hands, and I thought, you know what? I love to tell stories. I've been telling stories all my life. It's been part of my profession. I spent a lot of times in front of juries in Detroit, Michigan, hundreds of juries, telling them stories. Hopefully they were factual stories. Hopefully they were based on facts and not made up. But so I love to tell stories, so I thought that would be an easy transition for me to move that into a podcast format. So I created this thing called Get Some Podcast. I came up with the name Get Some from my son, who had a fitness gym called Get Some Fitness. Get Some is a bit of an edgy kind of title,
Sure.
but within the athletic world, it really fits. It really works well. So we went with it, and this summer I began actually creating content for that podcast. And the first series that I did was focusing on the Cocodona 250, but I didn't really want to do the typical podcast about a race in terms of we started at the start line, this happened at aid station X,
Right.
and then we went to aid station Y, and we finished this, and we were feeling that, and so forth. I really didn't want to do that because there are so many podcasts out there that do that really well. I can think of one called one that Kevin Goldberg puts out every week that does an amazing job with 200-mile races. So my podcast was really, let's see if we can't come up with a little storytelling that builds into the race itself. So while it was focused on the Cocodona 250, I literally broke it up into 5 or 6 different podcasts ranging from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. But within the podcast itself and within the race itself, I tried to come up with realistic, factual stories within the context of the race. So, for example, when we hit the Flagstaff area, which is the final leg for the Cocodona 250, an amazing story about a crime that happened just off the trail from where we as Cocodona runners ran through, and what happened with that crime, and the fascinating story behind that crime actually resulting in capital punishment. Another great story about a German immigrant who came to Sedona and the artwork that he produced, and an amazing winemaker in Jerome, which is the halfway point of the Cocodona 250. So the whole idea was to try to come up with stories that relate actually to the Cocodona 250, that perhaps people that are involved in the Cocodona 250 don't even realize happened, because when you're out there either running or crewing your runner or pacing your runner, you don't even realize that these things have happened around you. So that's sort of the context, the idea behind it. But the truth is, Mark, the idea was I want to tell stories that I want to tell. Like, it doesn't matter to me whether other people like it or not. They're stories that interest me. So it's sort of a very selfish kind of podcast.
Well, I love that that's how it should start, right? I mean, if you're going to do something for yourself, other people, and you like it, other people are going to like it. So I first heard of you in 2025 at Cocodona. 14 people between the ages of 60 and 69 started the race. 3 people survived that race. You were one of them, 2025. So I look backwards in your ultra sign up and realize, wait a minute, that was the 4th time you did Cocodona. You started once in 2021. Didn't come all the way with that one, but potentially if you do next year, that'll be your 5th Cocodona. So as I looked at that history, and we'll talk about the races in a second, still really embracing and celebrating the podcast and that arc of the story of Cocodona. So you had been through the Jerome, you had been through the finish line, you've been at the start, you've been through all of the iconic images and the history of those towns for many times, right? 4 times. And so was it after the 2025 event that you felt, is that when you did the research on all these things, or had you been like learning more about it over the time because you first completed it in 2022, and that's so amazing to have done that, and
Yeah,
you're doing it every year.
I love the question because actually a lot of these stories I knew about before 2025. And the reason I'd known about them is because one of the things, part of long distance running is the art of distraction, taking your mind off the long miles and the pain that you go through, the suffering that you go through. Some runners are really, really good at the art of distraction. One of the tools that I use for that is in my research for the race, and I had done this for Cocodona before 2025. The race has changed a couple of times. There was a fire, I think it was in 2022, that they had to reroute the course. And there have been a couple of tweaks that have taken place in this last 2025 race. They had to reroute the course, and they actually took the course on a trail near Sedona called the Hangover Trail. So there have been a few tweaks, but it's been pretty much the same since day one. And so what I did for a distraction purpose was during my research, I would try to research interesting things or facts or people that might relate to a specific segment. And then I would write up that my research into sort of a narrative, and then I would actually record that in audio and keep it on my phone. So for those runners who have run with me, they sort of know that I have that, and they will actually call me out sometimes and say, "Hey, Paul, let's hear the interesting facts about this particular segment." And it's usually anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, whatever. But in addition to the story, I try to also include the specific statistics for that particular segment. How many kilometers or how many miles do we have to go before we hit the next aid station? What's the elevation gain? What's the elevation loss? And for a lot of runners, they have that on their watch or their phone or so forth. But I have it in my ears. I can literally listen to it. But it also has, this is sort of like a little secret that I have. It tells me, I tell myself what I have to do at the next aid station, what my tasks are at the next aid station. For example, make sure you ask your crew to charge all your electronic devices. Make sure that you change out your shoes, your socks, clean your feet, lube your toes, and so forth. So it's a reminder so that when the mind isn't working, you're reminding yourself what you have to do. So those are all the sort of the components, but to your question, I'm literally researching that segment to give me information about, hey, wait a minute, that mountain up there, that's mountain so-and-so. That valley over there, that's valley so-and-so. That river over there, or there was a crime that happened here 40 years ago. I want to know about that crime, that kind of thing.
Did you know about any of them before 2021? Like before when you
No.
first decided, okay, so you were going to do your research, you're going to, of course, prep everything. And one of the things you're going to do is learn about the locations. Are you saying, do I understand you to say that some people who were running with you on the course during these various versions of the Cocodona 250, during those moments, you were literally playing the recording for them to hear it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, they would ask for it.
Speak. Oh,
Because
you're
you're
my
looking
hero
for,
now.
you're
I've
looking for
never heard of that ever.
You're looking for a distraction, and they happen to know what my sort of modus operandi is. They know I've got a story. They know
Right.
I've got a description of that segment, and we're looking for anything to take our minds off of that segment. Yeah, it really, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but I love it.
And I know you're in Michigan, but I mean, can you imagine it sounds like you're taking a jury on a field trip through Arizona. You're going to Prescott. You're going to show them off something, right? That's exactly what that is.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it also helps you when you're preparing for a race, when you're researching. There are some runners that, frankly, are amazing because they can jump into the start line, know nothing about the race whatsoever, do no research about the race, and have a spectacular race. I'm not one of them. The more I know about the race, the more I know about each segment, the more it helps me trying to get to the end. In fact, There's a thing called deja vu. We all know that phrase, the French phrase deja vu. There have been certain segments over some of these races that I've been that I think I've done so much research on it, whether it's Google Earth or ChatGPT or whatever the source is, that I literally think I've been there before. I distinctly remember at the Moab 2024, we were on the last segment, dropping down from the plateau down to the recreational path that takes you to the finish line. And I told my pacer, my son Jeffrey, I said, Jeff, I've been here before. I know I've been here before. And he says, nope, you have never been here before. I said, no, I said, I can tell you every turn we're going to make before we get to that rec path. I know I've been here before. Now, I had never been there before. But I think in my mind, and maybe in my altered state at that point, having run for several days, that I wasn't thinking rationally, but clearly my mind was telling me, you've been here before.
I bet when you see images and YouTube videos and any kind of content and you're doing diligence and learning about the course, you definitely get familiar with it. And I remember 20 years ago, it wasn't about running, but I remember first time I played a video game of Pebble Beach. It was a Tiger Woods video game. And it was the first time years ago it got really realistic. And I played every hole, just like the old course in Scotland, which I'd never played. But by the time I get to Pebble Beach, I knew the course. I knew that seventh hole. I knew what club I was going to use. And so in the running context, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I did do some recon running, a couple of races I had, and I didn't realize what kind of visual memory I had, because last weekend I went out and covered some of the same ground, and I forgot that I had done that a long, long time ago. And when I got to this couple of giant rocks in the pathway, it unlocked a lot of images and a lot of feeling. And I was going out for a super long run, and it was until that moment I forgot about it. But the moment I remembered it, I got comfort. I knew all of a sudden I was just really comfortable about exactly where I was and how things were happening. So, and especially big races like Moab, and now that we've got live stream everything everywhere, right? So we can, I know that path, like when you're coming into that recreational path, when that road opens up and you're like, I can practically feel it. I can feel it. So let's go back to finishing line 2025, Cocodona. So I don't know you. I don't know Stephanie Irving, and I don't know Kevin Flieger. But I know at the moment that you came through, I'm like, wow, where's all there was 14 people that started in that age group and 3 people finished. And honestly, Paul, seeing the 3 of you, not knowing you, but I had a little, that's when my due diligence started. I was like, who are these people? What is the story? How did they get there? So by the time you do 2025 Cocodona, it's your 4th time. This is the 4th time you successfully crossed the finish line, right? So walk me through the decision. How did you decide, I've done it 3 times, I'm going to do another one? Talk to me about the decision to go to Cocodona and talk about, are you going to do number 5 or not? Let's do that one first. How'd you decide to do it again?
For sure, yeah. There's a thing called once you're on the train, you can't get off. I initially signed up for the 2021 inaugural edition of Cocodona, and I signed up never having run a 200-plus mile race before. The longest I had raced before was 100 miles. But it seemed like such a cool thing. I think Jameel Curry, the operator and owner of Aravipa Running, had put out an amazing video doing a great job of selling this race. It was fascinating to see what he and another runner had done in terms of creating the course. At the time, I had moved half of my life from Michigan to Arizona. So I was spending my winters in Arizona, my summers in Michigan. So literally the course was in my backyard. I spend the winters in the Phoenix area, and the course starts just north of Phoenix, ends up in Flagstaff. So that made a lot of sense to me. And the notion that it was the inaugural run, that really drew me too, because I love things that are new and have never been done before, and adventure, and let's try this thing and see what happens. It didn't turn out well. I ended up getting just shy of Prescott and developed a runner's lean that was debilitating. Every step was incredibly painful, and I couldn't make the cutoff time. That is what it is. You learn. It's a good lesson to have. But once you've done it one time, you've got to come back, especially if you haven't finished it. You have to come back for redemption. You have to come back for revenge. So 2022 was all about revenge and redemption, and that was the year, I believe, the fire year that they had rerouted the course. So it wasn't the original, and of course that first year, there was so much hype about the first 31 miles, the first 37 miles, first 31 miles up to Lane Mountain, 37 miles into Crown King, because of the incredibly steep climb and how the first 50K is probably the hardest 50K in the world, and it happens to be the start of the 250-mile race. So, so in a
you'd
way,
heard that. You'd heard
yes.
that. And how far did you get in the 2021? I don't remember. How far?
I think I got to about 65, 70 miles. So I was well beyond that climb. But the runner's lean is a mean thing for those who have developed it, and it can take you out of the game pretty fast. Ask Wes Rittner about the runner's lean. He's very familiar with it and I think has successfully conquered it. But
yeah, we'll take the tangent now. Why not? Because Andrew Lovey's no joke. 90-year-old guy, right? So he's the one that helped explain it, and Wes Rittner really explained it and so did you. So when you had the runner's lean, 2021, 60 miles in, had you covered 100K? Did you go 62 miles in that race or not yet in that one?
Yes, I was just past the 100K mark.
Okay, so that's a big marker too. And we're going to, forgive me if we go all over the place, but I'm
sure.
But I feel like I'm got you and I'm with you. Okay, so you moved to Arizona, and one of the coolest things that happens even a number of years ago before it really takes off and it's gigantic now is Black Canyon. So you obviously, you run in February 2019, you're 62 years old. You're my hero. You're going to run your age at Black Canyon's Ultra 100K, yes. February 2019, right? So It looks like you ran 100K a year before, but still you're turning 62 and you do Black Canyon Ultra. So at that moment, had you ever run in Arizona that kind of a distance ever before in Arizona? That was the first time, right?
Well, that was the first time, yeah. Yeah, the Black Canyon 100K drew me in, and that's just a beautiful race, which again is just north of the Phoenix area. And in fact, part of the Cocodona race, a very small part of it, is actually on the Black Canyon Trail.
Right, that's why I say it. And plus, when I look at your ultra sign up, glorious, heading toward 40 races pretty soon, but you've done Black Canyon 5 times. So clearly it's a great race to feel a little bit of ownership about. So I was getting to this so that by the time you take on Cocodona, it's a couple months later, but you're ready. You haven't done it before. It doesn't matter. You're ready. You're steeped in a little bit of Arizona history. You have a little bit of my gut says maybe I'm creating this, but there's a little bit of ownership because now you have a relationship with Arizona. You own some of this earth. You've run over the sacred grounds and you appreciate it. So you're ready to bring your A game at Cocodona. You do 100K. And then that lean gets you. Now, I'd never heard about it. I never read about it until very recently, but I'd seen it. I never knew what that was, the potassium impact of that. But let's talk about that for a second. When it hit you, had you ever experienced it? At the moment it hit you in 2021 at Cocodona, when you start that lean, like how did you receive when that was happening? How did you process it?
Yeah, it was, to be honest, the idea was I knew I needed some rest. And I came into one of the aid stations and literally laid down until literally the 5 minutes to the cutoff, because I knew if I went horizontal, that might help. I just didn't know about the mechanics, what caused it. I had it happen to me one time before, and that was at the 100-miler Run Rapid Run in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. But it happened literally in the last probably 2 or 3 miles from the end, where we're coming down Mount Werner down to the finish line, where I literally started tilting, and that was the first time it happened to me. I came into the finish line and asked the volunteer medic there if they had any idea what this was. They had no idea what caused it, what it was, why it happened. And honestly, I was worried that maybe I'd done some damage to myself in the mountains of Colorado. Next morning, after a good night's sleep, I was 100%. So I thought to myself, well, clearly rest is one of the keys to solving the problem. But then it happened at the Cocodona 2021 version, and then it happened a couple of times after that, and that's when I reached out to Wes Rittner. And if you've followed the ultra marathon running world, he is a fixture with 200-mile races. He's super good, very competitive. He's at the front. But it happened to him, I think, 2 or 3 years ago at Moab 240. He did his due diligence, did his research. I reached out to him, and he shared with me an article from this doctor from Houston, Texas, the one you referred to, that's 90-plus years old, a guy who's run over 200 marathons, 230 ultra marathons. This guy is amazing. And I believe he was the physician for the U.S. long-distance 24-hour and 48-hour team. But he would see this in the runners. Mm-hmm. And so he went on his own journey, his own quest to try to find out what was happening. And he basically identified that little muscle on the side of, basically, it's not in the rear, the glute, the main glute, the glute maximus, but the minimus, which is a little muscle on the side of the hip, where he identified that as being the primary problem. It simply wasn't firing. Maybe some adhesions or some knots were developing in it. And probably because of the lack of proper electrolytes like potassium and so forth. But once it happens, his strategy was to somehow reset that muscle, the gluteus minimus muscle. So if you lean to the right, it's the right gluteus minimus. If you lean to the left, it's the left gluteus minimus. It's whatever side, that's the muscle that's not firing properly. So, and he would reset them by doing a massage technique, trying to work that knot or whatever was out and reset that muscle. And he found a lot of good success with the runners that he was coaching and training. So Wes saw that. I got the article from Wes, and we actually, before, in a recent race, the Arizona Monster, when the lean began developing, we began implementing and executing this reset methodology of massaging that minimus. And we actually, at the Arizona Monster, over the course of probably 75 or 100 miles, was able to get myself into a straightened position where I could finish the race. So there are ways. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not telling people that this is the be-all, end-all answer. But for me, it clearly worked. For Wes, it also worked. He's got a great story of the 2024 Moab, where 100 miles in, he could feel himself tilting. And one thing Dr. Andrew Levy has recommended is that when it happens, the earlier the intervention, the more probable that you're going to have success. So when Wes began feeling that tilt, he describes himself as finding a boulder that's embedded in the ground, and then actually laying on his side in that muscle area and massaging that area and working that area, so that when he came up after 5 minutes, he was good to go and finished the race strong. So if it's good for Wes, it's good for me.
Right. So it looks like you've done the Monster once, right? I mean, it just started. So you did Arizona, you did the Monster in April 2025, and that's just a month before you do Cocodona, which is insanity and amazing. And you're a beast. You do Moab in October 2024, Monster in April 2025, and then Cocodona in May 2025. So when you were with Wes during the Monster and that's when it hit you again. Had it hit you between the 2021 Cocodona DNF and the the Monster in 2025? Had that lean hit you in between then?
There were a couple of, I think one race, maybe, I'm trying to remember now which one. It may have been the Huron 100-mile race in Michigan that I developed a lean that actually knocked me out of the race. I couldn't make the time cutoffs. Didn't have enough time to basically resolve the issue. But it doesn't happen in every race. That's the strange thing about it is at some of the Cocodona races, I've had no lean issues whatsoever. At other Cocodona races, like the one in 2021, I had the problem. So, and I can't tell you why it comes on, but when it comes with vengeance.
Can you feel it when it happens, James? Can you feel the knot? Like, can you literally go to that side you're leaning on, and can you feel where it's coming, emerging through or something?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I can actually feel it. Like if I press on the side where that muscle's at, I can actually feel that knot. And at the Arizona Monster, one of my pacers, Jonathan Pantelli, who's got a real hand or a knack for massage therapy, he worked on me and he immediately identified the knot. And we had a Theragun, a massage gun, and he worked that thing. We had a ball that he worked at as well. Very painful. Once you have somebody who knows what to look for, and they're working it hard, and they're actually trying to break up that knot. They're trying to break up the adhesion. It can be very painful, but at the end of the day, you've got to get it fixed so you can get to that finish line.
Thank you for explaining that on the last podcast you were on when I got to see you talk about the knot, because I had heard about it before. And what I heard was the West story about leaning on a rock to get it fixed, but I really didn't visualize that, it's literally a knot. And so I guess that would be very helpful if I perceive that I ever perceive that myself. I'll just feel on my butt, feel where it's at and see if something can be done to knock it loose. I want to go back to, you've got so many great races and it's so impressive. And I love that you are 69. That's really impressive. You don't look like you're 69, my friend. You look like you're a solid 46. So I'll just tell you that. Like you were like rock solid 46. So
Mark,
whatever you're taking.
You are way too kind, brother.
Well, listen, we only know what we know from what people present, how people present themselves, and you present, man, really well. Again, I started stalking you when I saw you finish a Cocodona. There's a story there. So are you aware, first, do you know Kevin Flieger, who was also finished with at Cocodona the year before in 2024 with you, not Stephanie Irving, but were you aware of the other two athletes, Stephanie and Kevin? Now you're separated by many, many, many minutes. So it's not like you're not running together, but at what point in the race, if at all, are you aware of people dropping off and you're going to finish and there's others who are not going to finish? You aware of that at all?
Totally unaware of those kind of things that are happening around me now. I can tell you one thing I've done at some of these races is I will actually print out or make a copy of those runners who are in my age group because they're my competition. I can't compete against the 20-year-olds or the 30-year-olds or the Courtney DeWalters or the Rachel and Theraguns. I mean, these people are on a different planet that I live on. They're too good. But those people who are in my age group, the 60 to 69 age group, and by the way, next year I'll be actually in a new age group. So
don't jump ahead of me, man. That's a good piece. Just keep talking about Cocodona for a second.
So in my age group, I'll actually identify whether it's 15 people or however many people are in that age group. I'll identify them, and I'll actually share that information with my crew, specifically my crew chief, Christopher, my son, and I'll actually make a copy of those runners and put them on the crew vehicle. Okay, this is my competition. It's your job to keep me aware of where I am in relation to my competition. The problem is they never do that. They never do that. Like sometimes I'll come and say, "How am I doing?" They go, "Shut up and get some food and get out of here." So, yeah, they don't take it very seriously like I take it. So, I mean, the truth is, I had no idea how many had dropped, how many. I didn't know Stephanie and I didn't know Kevin. I actually had a chance to look at the podcast and watch the podcast with Stephanie, which was amazing. And I saw that Kevin was actually he won our age group.
Right.
The three that finished, he won our age group. Stephanie came in second, and I'm happy to say I came in third. So in terms of the podium, we all podiumed for the 60 to 69 age group.
Right. Yeah, he's behind you a couple years, so you're gonna be in a different group in a minute. But in 2024, he was just saying, like, he came ahead of you. He came ahead of you not by too many minutes, but he came ahead of you as well. So I'm going to plant the seeds here. Here's what we're going to do. By the time he gets into that 70 age group,
right. I should tell you this, that so there was another runner who is sort of on the other opposite spectrum as the 60 plus age group, people like myself and Stephanie and Kevin. His name is Tug Boren. I don't know if you ran across the name Tug Boren. Tug is 17 years old. I believe he was the youngest runner to finish the Cocodona. Okay. Tug and I, for the last probably 100 miles, were leapfrogging each other. I'll never forget seeing him as I was coming into one of the aid stations. I think it's probably around Walnut Canyon. And Tug was so sleepy, he had found himself a place on a stump off the side of the trail. And I was behind him about a half a mile. And as I came up, I thought maybe I was hallucinating, because usually when I'm at that stage and I see a stump or a tree, it looks like a person, but really isn't. Right. This was actually a person. This was Tug, sitting up straight like I am right now, sleeping in the middle of the woods. It was absolutely amazing. But I had a chance to see Tug at the finish line because he finished sometime before I did. And in the air there in Arizona and maybe in the Flagstaff area, a lot of the runners get these nosebleeds. And Tug got a nosebleed that would not stop. His entire shirt was completely bloody. It was the greatest thing in the world to see how he had basically shed a lot of blood to get across that finish line.
I remember the live stream, and I remember his mother. He was 17 years old at the time.
Yes.
So that would be very freaky for you to come across a dude like that, bloody on a stump. Looks like he's dead. Whether he's sitting up or not, he looks like he's gone. So that would be pretty crazy. He came in at 120 hours. You were in at 123. So yeah, he did, but he was at 17 years old. That is the other end of the spectrum, and that's pretty amazing. Wow.
Yeah, when I as I was approaching the Walnut Canyon aid station, a couple of young guys were running toward me, and I said, which runner are you looking for? They said Tug. I said, Tug is behind me. He's asleep in the woods. He'll be by here pretty soon. Just be patient. It was great.
I'm going to find when I go through post-production here, I'll see if I can find the shirt. Because I think in the chat, if I'm not mistaken, the mom, people, they're so active in the live stream and the chat. I don't know if you've experienced that yet, because it sounds like you've been out there running on these races. But I think we got so energized because we don't know these people, except we start to know them during that feed. So it's pretty interesting and pretty exciting. I want to go to the age groups, but before I do that, let's take just one little shift here. You've been running a long time, but I've seen only a couple people mention that the Canadian brand Norda, and you really like these Norda shoes, right? And you've been using them for a minute. So talk to me about those. We never hear about this brand called Norda. So what's the deal? Why are they so good? Why do you like them?
So I came across them. There's a podcast called The Conversational Pace.
Okay. Yeah.
Really good podcasters that basically review trail running shoes, and they reviewed the Norda 001, and I think they may have reviewed the 005 and whatever other iterations that Norda has. And then I did my research. There we go. Very nice. So I did my research and Found out that they were a company in Canada. And the one thing I really liked about them is they unabashedly said, these shoes are expensive. And they're expensive because we try to put the best products in them. We try to make them as light as possible. They're very, very light. They're very, very sturdy, and they're very, very comfortable. I am a sucker for trail shoes. I will buy trail shoes. If there's something out there, I'm going to give it a go, regardless of whether it's HOKA, Adidas, Norda, you name it. I've got a whole closet full of different types of shoes out there. Got the Norda, and actually I'm basically a real big fan of the Norda shoes because they're so comfortable.
I love the way they look, and I think it's when I hear an aging or an athlete the same age as me, for more than anything else, what it tells me is that you've lived a long life, and so you make very specific choices, and so I like to kind of emulate them or see what they're about. Are you a brand loyalist? Would you describe yourself as a brand loyalist?
I'm not a brand loyalist. I'm not sponsored by any brands for sure. If it looks good to me, I'm going to give it a go. And there are certain shoes that I recently have really fallen in love with. One is the HOKA Tecton X3, the one with the built-in gaiters. I love those shoes.
Yeah,
those shoes are great. I used them at the Divide 200. And there was a very, very long and steep scree field that every other runner that I saw go through that scree field had to take their shoes off afterwards, even those wearing gaiters, to get the rocks out. With those HOKA Tecton X3 with the built-in gaiters, not a single rock entered my shoe. Those shoes are light. They're comfortable. They look a little bit odd. I mean, that's the one thing that sort of kept me away from them at first was the fact that they seemed a little bit strange having the built-in gaiters. But once I wore them, fell in love with them.
Yeah, I love that you're willing to just try new things that look like they might work for you. That's really the best approach, I think. I'm pretty sure, though unbeknownst to her and my family, really, I think my wife would be very, very, very happy to understand this fact. I wear a size 15, and 90%.
Wait. Did you say 15?
15. So 90% of the brands that we love don't make my size.
Right.
If that wasn't a true statement, I'd be like Paul James Johnson. I'd have more shoes than medals right now, right? Because
I'm not sure I know anybody who has a size 15 unless it's one of those basketball players that are 7'2".
Right. And so when I looked these up, when I heard you on that other podcast, like Norda, that sounds new. But of course, that's the first thing I do. And womp, womp, womp. They don't have it. So but some brands, most brands have at least one. That's not true. Like HOKAs make a couple of models that are 15s, but not the majority. ASICS has been making 15s and 16s for decades, and so I've ended up using a lot of ASICS shoes. Ultra, thankfully, they make for most of their shoe line. So, you make do. It's fine. It's fine. But what it does is it allows me to have a very, very specific objective in mind when I'm trying to get to shoes, and I still have to be. Often my whole life I've withheld judgment, and when I get a pair of shoes, I find out all the things I like about them, and I hope I don't really get a pair of shoes. These are bad because of blah blah blah. I'll just use these instead because there's none of these instead, right? So
that's really interesting. I mean, that is such a challenge. I didn't, being a size 10 and a half, I mean, every shoe in the world is 10 and a half, but a 15, that seems to be an incredible challenge to try to get the shoes. I wonder, does that affect your running at all? Like, I know that I've had over the years, I ran with a friend who was basically 6'11", and I always laughed at him because even though he had longer legs, he could cover a lot more ground than I could because I'm 5'8". I knew that the gait and so forth for a taller person is much more difficult than it is for a shorter person, which is why these East Africans are all about 5'4", 5'5", and they can beat everybody in the world, and they're not 10 feet tall. But size 15 shoes, wow, that's a challenge.
They're long and narrow feet too, so they're not big and clumpy. They're long and narrow, and ASICs. I sometimes I wear supportive shoes. HOKAs. I just finally got to discover some HOKAs. They make a couple of versions. Very happy about that. Stinson 7, a new version of the trail shoe for HOKA, and those fit. Those are wide, and they have a little. They have like the big stack, 40 and 35 mil stack, 5 millimeter drop. Ultras are really good. Those are no drop, zero drop, and no support either. So for a number of years, I really trained myself to work with an arch and make my feet work. But because I don't have anything to compare it to, I don't know. But I feel each time, I mean, I found shoes that I just love. And I've found shoes where blisters are an issue, and I realized it's not me. It was definitely the shoe, or how my foot was hitting in the shoe. Or I discovered toe socks a little while ago, and that for me, that was a big, big, big game changer for me. Toe socks, I mean, it's everything. And my toes are not, there's no challenges really. Once I have, keep the feet lubed up and moisturized and well done, and the toe socks help. So I didn't mean to take you down the Norda path to talk about size 15 feet. That was not my objective, but thank you for, offering it up there, Paul. I appreciate that.
For sure, absolutely. Love those shoes.
That's a good
and I'm
thing.
not even sponsored by Norda.
Yeah, I think you should be. You look good.
There you go.
I've been looking at those shoes and imagining you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look, you've been looking really good. And you know what happens here? Let's go to this right now, because you are poised. You're 69, about to be 70. You're going to join this new age group. In the trail universe, our age groups are 10 years, right? From 60 to 69, 70 to 79. In street racing and marathons, it's, different, 60 to 64, 65 to 69, whatever. So for how many years have you been aware of that age group makes a difference from a competitive mindset?
I've known it for many years, because in the marathon world, when I would run road marathons, it's the same thing. Maybe not the 10-year frame. For example, for the Boston Marathon, it's 5-year frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if in any kind of racing, whether it's marathon racing or ultra marathon racing, I've known for many years that that's the way it works, and so. And you always sort of get a reset. You get a little bit of a break if you move into that next age group. Although I don't know how, I think when you turn, is it 40 that you become a master division?
Is it 40, 45? I don't remember what that number is. Yeah.
Could be. I don't know. I'm long past whatever that is. And then there is a thing called the Grandmaster Division. I don't know if that's 60 or what have you. Not that it makes any difference at all. It literally doesn't make any difference in ultra-marathon running, because there's only one way to get on the podium, and that's becoming 1, 2, or 3, and I'm a long way away from that.
Yeah, that's the point of this podcast in a part. I mean, that's why I wanted to celebrate you. That's why I thank you again for being on this very specific show, man. I saw you finish. I saw how it worked. And I thought, this guy's not 60. He's not 61. He's not 62. And I hadn't looked you up before. So by the time I looked you up, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the 4th time he's done Cocodona? This guy comes in and crushes it. So it's not about being on the podiums. It's about resilience, coming through, continuing to do it. Let's take down that path for a minute. So you've been running all your life, or you run a lot. But at some point, you don't do street marathon so much, and you start discovering the trails. And ultimately, you discover these long distances. Tell me about that story. And was it related to when you moved to Tucson, moved to Arizona? Or tell us about that story, from marathons to trail to 200s.
Right. So my first marathon was in 1996. It was the Detroit Free Press Marathon. It's the annual big marathon that's held in the city of Detroit. That sort of was a result of myself joining a group of guys about 5 years earlier. I was 35 in the practice of law, and thought maybe I needed to have a medical checkup. Hadn't had a medical checkup since I was in high school, and those health checks were nothing, right? They just simply got you onto the sports team.
Right.
So at 35, I had a medical director do that checkup, and during the checkup, he said, "Hey," he says, "I've got a group of guys. We run on a regular basis, 3 or 4 times a week. Do you want to join us?" I gave it some thought. Joined these guys. They were fantastic, and one of those guys, who owned a local funeral home of all things, we decided that at the age of 40, we're going to run the Detroit Free Press Marathon, all 26.2 miles, which seemed like a really long way to run.
But you were running 5 years by then. So by that time, you'd already been running for about 5 years. Okay.
We've been running regular, and I'd done the 5Ks and the 10Ks and those kind of things, family outings, that kind of thing. Take the kids along, have them run with me. So we're running this Detroit Free Press Marathon, and I think we're around mile 20 or so, in a lot of pain, suffering, and John Modetz.
What's the longest you'd run up to that point in time?
Well, I had done a 20-mile training run.
Oh, okay.
Which was the longest I'd run, and that was specific to prepare for the marathon. Okay. That was the longest I'd run. So we're somewhere around that point where it was the longest we had gone, and John, my friend, one of Detroit's finest in blue, was standing along this course, and he ran up to him and said, "Officer, I see that you have a gun in your holster there. Officer, is it loaded?" The officer said, "Of course it's loaded." He said, "Well, officer, I direct you and order you to take that gun out and shoot me right now." He says, "I'm in too much pain." But we ended up finishing that, and the kicker is not quite as bad as Tug Bourne with all the blood from the nose, but there is a thing in marathon racing where they call it chafing. Are you familiar with that?
Sure.
So I had chafing where the nipples were bleeding, and literally red lines down the front of and I didn't even realize that, because you're running, you're not paying attention to that stuff. But of course, everybody's looking at you like you have a third eye in the middle of your forehead. But the worst thing about it is my groin area as well was also chafing and also bleeding, where the blood was literally running down the sides of my legs. So my family, my 3 boys, are at the finish line, and they look at their father and they go, "Nope, not going to do this."
Wait, how old were they? You're 35. How old were you at that time?
They were in middle school, early high school. Yeah, they were not impressed whatsoever. It was horrible. So that was my first experience. But I went from there, ran and I had a group of other guys that I ran with as well, and joined a group that actually were more focused on marathon running than just simply running for the sake of the physical side of it. Okay. And we ended up doing things like, the Boston Marathon, the Chicago Marathon, did a number of marathons all over the country, and that seemed to be the thing, right? Running these marathons. And
were you doing it together with your group of guys?
Sometimes we would. In fact,
cool.
one year we took a group of I think 5 or 6 of us with the wives to Phoenix and did the Phoenix Mesa Marathon. The Phoenix Mesa Marathon was perfect because for the 13 miles, it's all downhill, and then it flattens out for the next 13 miles. It's a great Boston qualifier. If you want to get into Boston, if you're fast enough to get in, go to the Phoenix Mesa Marathon. They have a high percentage rate of people that actually get into the Boston Marathon. So, in fact, the reason we went there was to get into the Boston Marathon. Okay. So, yeah, so it was a lot of fun, a lot of great camaraderie with these other guys and running these marathons. But so that was age 40 and on for the next decade, running, or actually 2 decades. And then at the age of 60, I hear about this thing called an ultramarathon, a trail ultramarathon, something that was sort of interesting, something I'd never done before and not that familiar with. And none of our group had done one of these things before. And so I came across this ultramarathon called the Marquette Trail 50. It's in Marquette, Michigan, if you know where that's at. It's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right off of Lake Superior. It's warm one day of the year. The rest of the time, it's all cold. Lake Superior never warms up. And so I reached out to the race director to apply, and they had a 100K, they had a 50-miler, and then they had a 50K. So they had 3 options. So naturally, you always go for the biggest option, even if you've never done it before. And so I applied for the 100K. And for that particular ultra marathon, unlike a lot of the ones you see today, they actually review your application. You're basically submitting it, trying to sell yourself to be able to do whatever it is you're applying to do.
Okay.
And I got rejected. They said no.
They're like,
no. They said,
100K,
we don't care.
you're insane, guy. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't care if you've run the Boston Marathon. We don't care if you've run 20 marathons. We just don't care because you've never even done a 50K or a 50 miler. No, you can't do our 100K. We rejected you. But they said, we will allow you, if you wish, even though the 50 mile has sold out, we will accept you for the 50 mile distance. I'm in. Let's do it. So I ran that 50 miler. It was a unforgettable experience. The weather was absolutely the worst weather you could possibly have. A major storm came off of Lake Superior. Weather temperatures were in the upper 40s probably, with rain all day long, verge of hypothermia all day long, running, slipping and sliding. Many of the 50 milers, when they got to the 50K mark, simply dropped out of the race. I think we had maybe 16 or 17 that actually decided to go all the way. In fact, at that 50K turnaround, the race director was there. And the race director had done a pre-race meeting, had told all the runners, we are very, very strict about our cutoff times. If you don't make the cutoff time, you're out of the race. We ask you for your bib. You must turn your bib over, and you can pick your bib up at the finish line. And oh, by the way, my name is Hatchet Man. My job is to cut you off. So don't get mad at me. I'm telling you right up front, I am the Hatchet Man. So I came into that 50K turnaround. I knew I had another, 15 miles or so to go. And it was miserable. The volunteers were miserable. I mean, this was horrible. Like, people were having a bad day out there. And the race, and I had plenty of time coming into that point. The race director actually came up to me and said, "Do you plan to continue?" And I thought that was such a strange question. I signed up for the 50 miler. You mean there's an option? You mean I can actually drop right here? I didn't tell him that, but I told him, I said, yes, I am going forward. And it was at the next aid station, I believe the 41-mile mark, when my wife, I literally could see her coming on the trail. She was maybe a quarter mile away from the aid station. She's yelling at me. She's telling me, Hatchet Man is back at the aid station, and if you don't sprint to that aid station, he's cutting you off. She put the fear of God in me, and I sprinted to the aid station. On the way through, grabbed a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and kept on running. And there were about 4 or 5 that had been running with me. He cut every one of them off. It was like, this is crazy. These people are serious out here. But ended up finishing that race, and that was sort of the precursor for a lot of the other races that I did.
So this is Paul's 59. This is August of 2016. It's his first finish on Ultra sign up, and it looks pretty good. There he is, Marquette Trail 50 miler. But I'm going to click through here. This is the coolest thing in the history of ever. So it's this man's first real ultra. He's going to see if he can get it done. And we're going to do this because this is the coolest thing in the world. Let's see how many of those 50 to 59-year-olds did, right? Oh, look at that. First place in the age group. He smashed it. Paul James Johnson, Rochester Hills, 59 years old. First place in the age group. At a time
Mark,
of 13:43:12.
I have to tell you, Mark, that when I crossed the finish line, nobody even knew it. It was the most uneventful thing you can possibly imagine. It's not like the Boston Marathon where you have thousands of people at the finish line. There were a few volunteers. There was an old barn out to the side, and they were trying to get their stuff together to get the heck out of there, right? And I crossed the finish line, and I looked around and walked up to one of the volunteers and said, "Hey, is there a finishing medal or an award that I get?" He goes, wait, you just finished you finished the race? I said, yeah. And in fact, there was one guy behind me he was behind me. And I said, yeah, there's another guy about a half mile behind me. He'll want the same thing. So I had to ask for my finisher's medal. It was definitely nothing very big for sure.
Well, listen, then, I'm really glad that we took a moment to just profile it and show it, because I thought it would be one and done. I thought I wouldn't hear many stories like this, but so far, the people I've been able to talk with on the podcast, we have a lot of times where the first ultra somebody does, they win. You know, they're not young anymore. They're not babies. We're not all necessarily old. We're not in our 70s necessarily, but that's pretty cool. So whether you, and in most instances, maybe like you too, you weren't necessarily aware of the age group universe when the first time you finish. But then you finish and you're like, okay, there we are. There we go, right? So congratulations. But you're 59.
Until now, I didn't realize until now I actually came in first place. Thank you for telling me.
Oh man, my pleasure. In that case, I'm very, very happy about that. So without going through, you have a lot of races, without going to go through all of them, but you got the bug somehow in 2016. You're about to turn 60. You don't do another big race of the Twin Peaks 50K, looks like, in 2018. There's a little gap in 2016 to 2018. So what was that gap? But after that, it looks like you kind of really stepped in to long distances and to trails. So did you stop running street marathons at that period, or what happened between then, if there was something that went down? You just started.
Yeah, there wasn't really a hard line between the road marathons and the trail runs. Okay. But there definitely was a transition. I think I still did probably 2 or 3 or more marathons in that transition time. But I would, without looking at my races, I would probably think that 2019-20, that I stopped doing road marathons altogether. It just seemed to me that I had been down that road before. It was a great road to run. It was a lot of fun, had a lot of great races. But it was time for me to move to the ultra marathons, the trail races. And the truth is that when you're preparing for a marathon, you have a close eye on the clock. Okay, you're trying to beat out 7:15 miles or 7:30 miles or whatever it is your goal is, and you're trying to do it every mile. Okay, and so when you're training for those things, it becomes a very specific time-oriented training. Whereas while time does make a difference with your longer distance races, it's not that important. In fact, some of these races, the Arizona Monster or some of these other 200-mile races, if you hike the race and you hike at a pretty good pace, you probably can finish it on time. And so speed isn't so much the key factor. It's endurance, it's consistency, it's staying focused with what you have to do. It's minimizing time in aid stations. It's keeping on the trail. So for someone who is aging, and I was getting older, and my speed was dropping, it was a perfect transition from the road marathons to the longer distance ultra marathons.
So I see in 2018, you did the 50K. But here's an interesting little fact, and thank you, really. I'm grateful to Ultra Sign Up, but also I'm glad you're an athlete that's just out in the world, because data is everything. And then when I look at someone's profile, I have these, try not to make assumptions, as I said before, but it's really interesting data. So it looks like the first 100K you do is in Colorado in 2018, never summer 100K, and it's 62 miles. You're in Colorado, so you're at some elevation compared to Michigan and Arizona. And it's a number of months, a summer before you do your first Black Canyons Ultra. So it's in Colorado, and you finish in 22 hours. So there must be a long cutoff time or something. But it sounds like what a great formula. If you're going to do something really unique, you've never been to altitude, never run in Colorado before, and you do 100K, sounds like a pretty interesting choice. So talk about the choice, and if you remember it, talk about those elements of, wow, hadn't done this before, and how'd you feel about that?
Yeah, so I've mentioned my son Christopher Johnson, CJ. He's been my crew chief for a number of my long distance runs, and he's been key to my success in a lot of those runs. But he and I are sitting on the couch. I think it was the holidays of maybe eight months before that race. And we're probably watching a Detroit Lions football game, who knows? And we're talking about these crazy ultramarathon races. And he lived in Colorado for a few years, is very familiar with the area. And he says, you need to break out. He says, basically, your life, your racing life is getting smaller and smaller. And he says, so you need to try something new and get out to like Colorado or someplace crazy out there and do these 100Ks. And so he put the challenge out there for me and told me that my life was almost at an end, so I better jump in there quickly.
Wait. In June, you do the 50K in two parks in Leonard, Michigan. And 1 month later, 6 weeks later is when you go to Colorado to do the 100K. So keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to set that stage. Like you just ran a 50K.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I said, let's get on the computer. Let's find something. And we come across this race called Never Summer 100K in just west of Fort Collins, Colorado. Okay. I mean, the images they had on the computer were beautiful. And we go, let's do it. And let's not just me, but let's do it together. Okay. So me and CJ, we packed up and headed for Colorado. When was it? August? I forget now what month it was. July or August of that year? Yeah. July. Okay. And we ran the race actually together. Now, by together, we started together. We separated during some of those segments. We came together during some of those segments and actually finished together. So I can tell you the last 2 or 3 miles, I couldn't get a word out of CJ whatsoever. He was in so much pain. He was in so much suffering. It was so fun to watch him in that pain and suffering after he was making so much fun of me.
Was that his longest distance too, or?
I think it was. I mean, I think he had done probably 3 or 4 ultramarathons. 50. He had done a couple in Southern California. I forget now which ones he did, but he had done a handful of shorter distances. And in fact, I think maybe he was even with me when we did that sort of tune-up, the 50K in Michigan before the 100K. So, yeah.
Now, he called you referred to him as your crew chief for all these other races, everything you've done, but at that time, you're in Colorado, you'd never done it before. Were you acting as each other's pacers, and did you have crew, or how did that part of it work for your first 100K?
My wife was our crew for both of us. She crewed for both of us. And we had no pacers. We essentially just went out there and did it together, even though we separated at times, but had some great experiences out there. There's a really steep section, I think it's called Diamond Peak. We got one of those amazing Colorado afternoon lightning and hailstorms blowing through us as we climbed over the mountain. So a lot of fun, a lot of fun up there. And the weather was very crazy. I actually wasn't prepared for the colder weather at the higher elevations. Did not have long sleeves, and at one point we had been soaked with the rain, and we had stopped in the woods to try to protect ourselves, and a few other runners were with us to protect ourselves from a hailstorm. And after a couple of minutes, I looked at CJ and said, I've got to keep moving. If I don't keep moving, I'm going to freeze to death out here, because I just had short sleeves on. I mean, anybody in Colorado knows that's so stupid. I was so stupid. But it is what it is. You learn, right?
You learn. So that's July 2018. Okay. Is that when then Black Canyon's your first 100K in Arizona at 62? You had finished the 100K at Never Summer, right? July 2018. Good job in Colorado. Is that when you then moved to Arizona to do, and you're in Black Canyon by February 2019? That's your first Arizona 100K?
Right. We actually made the move in 2020, late 2020. But we would visit Arizona on a regular basis before that time, so it made sense to me. And I'd seen some of the races that Aravaipa Running put on, and they they seem to do such a great job, and I've learned that they are like the creme de la creme when it comes to ultramarathon trail races. But I think the first race that I ran, that 100K in Arizona, was severely affected by weather in terms of rain that had come through, where they had to literally alter the course because I think it's the Agua Fria River was overflowing the banks, and the runners could not cross that river. So as a result,
during
they
the
rerouted
race, it was rerouted during the race.
They actually rerouted it the morning of the race. I mean, they
Okay.
were hoping, as we're leading into the race, they were hoping that the water level would come down far enough, but it became an issue where it was actually unsafe to cross the river because of the height of the river that would normally be crossed by runners. And as a result, we were doing some different things in terms of trying to get the race in.
Right. So Aravaipa, I've yet to be able to run an Aravaipa race. I can't wait. I agree with you. The level of professionalism with Aravaipa, destination trails, and of course the pressure that Aravaipa provided, destination trails provides, really got UTMB, I think, globally to really up its game, come on this big acquisition tear through the United States to start buying so many races. But putting that aside, let's celebrate Black Canyons for a minute, because as a 69-year-old runner, we really didn't start going long until the last decade or so. Doing 5 Black Canyon 100Ks is worthy of celebration. It's pretty cool. Just like if you do Cocodona this year, you're going to do 5 Cocodona 250. So talk about, what do you like about Black Canyon Ultras, what did you like about going back to them?
It is such a beautiful course, the Black Canyon Trail. There's actually a coalition, I think it's called the Black Canyon Trail Coalition, that maintains that trail. But you're basically running from Mayer, Arizona, that's the northernmost town on the course, all the way down to the New River Highway. I forget what the final station is called, but you're running through saguaro cactus. You're running through just a beautiful trail, a lot of single track trail. And the truth is that it brings a lot of great runners out there. So you're running with a lot of very, very cool runners that are running it. So, and plus it's in my backyard. So why not?
Right.
I mean, literally I get up the morning of the race and it's a half an hour away.
Love it. So the first time you run it, that might not be that much aware how close it is or how it's going to be when you move there. But in 2019, were you aware of the celebrity status, or even that might have evolved over the couple of years after that, where so many of the top ranked, well-known ultra running athletes are there at Black Canyons, in part because they want to qualify. At the moment, still Western States endurance run remains, on everyone's bucket list, and really it's an objective way to try to get more opportunities to try to get into Western States. So the first time you run it, were you aware of the brand names of the big runners, or when did that happen? What point in your ultra running universe did you become aware of those names, so that you were going to be able to run alongside those celebrities? Runners.
I can't say that I was very familiar with the elite runners and that elite group of runners. I think over time, the names like Courtney Dauwalter and so forth become embedded in our mind. But I had heard about this thing called the Golden Ticket, which there are certain races, one of them being the Black Canyon 100K, where if you're, I think, the first and second male and first and second female, you're given a golden ticket to enter Western States, the 100-mile race in California. So I knew that was something that would draw runners in to this particular race. And this particular race is a fast race in the sense that you're basically dropping an elevation much of the time, although there's some pretty good climbs in there as well. But overall I think the net elevation is negative, which means that there are some great sections there that those who are really fast and really good can make some great times. So I picked up on some of these names over time, and I'm the kind of guy where I like to get up front. I don't like to be in the back at the start line.
Okay.
I'm looking to get, shoulder to shoulder with some of these amazing runners, just to maybe some of their good luck will rub off on
Right,
me.
rub off on you. Good.
But no, I'm never in the back. I'm always trying to be in the front so that at least I can run maybe 10 steps with them.
You're not slow. You're not slow at this moment. It wasn't slow then. So when you run your first one, you do 100K, 60 miles in 14 hours. And the next one, you do 100K, you're 63, you do it in 16 hours. And the next one, you're 64, 2021, you do it in 17 hours, almost 18 hours, right? So, and you do it 2022 faster than you had done it in 2021. And by this point, you're 65 years old. So running through it 2023, you're 66 and you're only at 18 hours. And I think it's really, yeah, that's all of them. I just want to celebrate you for a minute, man. So when you return the same race, you're familiar with it, and it must feel good to return to that race, get it done, another year older, and you're still doing it.
It's a great race. Yeah. It's, in fact, the more you do a race, and I think of Cocodona, I know Cocodona like the back of I just know it so well because I've done it so many times. Same thing with the Black Canyon 100K. You know where the aid stations are. You know what you got to do to get to the next aid station. You know what you have to do to prepare for it. Right. Now, it's it's one of those things where the more familiar you are with the race, the better you're going to do at that race. But by the same token, while I'm on the Cocodona train right now, okay, and I'm not going to get off that train as long as I can stay on that train.
Okay.
There are other races that I want to do that I'm really drawn to that I've never done before, which I think is important to keep exploring new races and the opportunities that are out there.
I don't know that I've heard of this one, but toward that end, November 12th, 2025. Is this a reality? Are you going to be in Florida? November 12th, 2025?
I will be, yeah. Here's another inaugural race. I love inaugural races. So second week in November, I will be running the Across Florida 200. It's a 200-mile race from a little beach area that's maybe an hour north drive time from the Tampa Bay area on the Gulf side. And then you run literally across the peninsula and finish at St. Augustine Beach on the Atlantic side. So it's a 200-mile race across the peninsula of Florida. There you go.
Look at that, man.
That's the race that you want to get on your Strava so you can show it off. Okay, I literally ran across the peninsula of Florida, and you can see me from space running across the peninsula. So it's really cool because this, as I understand this race, they've had it before in years past, but it's always been the kind of race where if you run it within a certain time frame, let's say January to December, you would simply submit proof that you actually ran that course, and then they would send you your medal. This is the first year where they're actually supporting the race and it being an official race from start to finish. So yeah, we're looking forward to a fantastic time in Florida.
Okay, let's look at this screen, man. So first of all, when I saw it, I'd never heard of it. I was on your ultra sign up. I clicked through and was like, oh, that is the coolest visuals of all visuals. Walking, running around Bigfoot, they look beautiful. But that cutting across the peninsula like that is amazing. And these are the entrants, right? So here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people that are registered, right? November to do it. And I miscalculated. I didn't know when your birthday was. I thought you would be 70 by then. But look at you. Here we go. We'll keep an eye on you, man, to see what happens
Okay.
there. We're going to
Yeah.
see.
So I have to put these names up on the crew vehicle and have them challenge me out there.
Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, I've
That
got
was
that.
so you saw the 200. So let's talk about that. That's how do you pick the races? So we were talking about celebrating a Black Canyon, and you're a Cocodona person for sure, because your familiarity with the course gives you some comfort and it's satisfying to do. Okay, great. But how did you end up picking this one? Like, did you just see that photo like I just did? I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. Like, how do you pick your races?
I had not seen that photo, but had I seen that photo, it would have sold me immediately. However, here's how I pick races. Okay, there's no rhyme or reason,
Oh,
but I have sort of moved into the 200 plus mile range, and so that's sort of the first criteria for me. Is it 200 miles or more? Okay, that's the first criteria. Now, there's a guy who is an amazing long distance runner. His name is Walt Handloser. He lives in Colorado.
okay.
Walt has come up with a spreadsheet. He tracks every 200 mile plus race in the world. Okay. And through social media, he actually makes this spreadsheet available to anybody who wants it. Naturally, I download it. And so it gives you not only the races, their websites, locations, the distance, the time of the year that they're racing. So it makes it really easy for you when you're trying to schedule things out, get your calendar, to find races that fit within what you're looking for. That's how I found this particular race across Florida. It's also how I found the next race that I have on my calendar, which is in January of 2026, which is the Thai 500, which is in Thailand. And it's a 500-kilometer race, which is essentially 300 miles. And so that'll be I think the second and third week of January of 2026. So this
That doesn't
little
appear, that's not on your Ultra sign up for some reason. So
Yeah,
that probably
the Thai-
will post later.
Well, the Thai 500, there's certain races like the Divide 200 in Canada, the Thai 500. Most of your ultra sign-up races are U.S.-based races.
Right.
Not every one is on ultra sign-up. Many of them are.
Yeah.
But once you get outside the U.S., you probably won't find them on the ultra sign-up sheet. But the other criteria that I use is location. If it's something that's convenient for me, like, for example, living my summers and falls in Michigan, I'm sort of a sucker for Michigan races. And a couple of years ago, when Michigan came out with a point-to-point 100-mile race in the southern Michigan area, from basically Jackson, Michigan, over through Ann Arbor and up into the Milford, Oakland County area, that was a no-brainer. And I knew some of the people that were involved in that race, so I signed up for that as well. So that's a 100-miler. It doesn't meet the 200-mile range, but it is a Michigan race, so I went for it.
Is that Huron? What's that one called?
It's called the Huron 100.
Huron 100. Okay, there it
They
is.
just did I actually DNF'd the first year because of the lean, came back this year, and obviously if you DNF, you got to come back, okay, and give it another shot. So I came back this year and was able to finish it.
So how'd you find the Thai race? That's pretty cool. Had you been to Thailand before, or why would you want to go to Thailand?
Right. I've never been to Thailand before, and it was one of those things where, I'm looking for something. We did the Arizona Monster this past April. That's a 300-plus mile race. So I was trying to sort of weigh in my mind, do I want to go back for the Arizona Monster again and do that, 4 weeks before the Cocodona 250? Do I want to look for something different? So I was looking for something maybe in that 200-plus mile range, and lo and behold, I see this Thai 500, and I'm thinking, let's do it.
You got it.
We got to do it.
Is Chris as your son and your crew member and collaborator and troublemaker. So when you're saying we, right, it's you and Chris, and who is it? Just the two of you going to Thailand, or is there some other family members going too, or how's that going to work? Because it sounds like a
Yeah.
great way to be, like your
Yes.
family. And I've heard you talk about it previously. So I love that CJ's there,
Yeah.
with you all the time, and he's going on the adventures. It's as much for him as it is for you, right? It's definitely a we thing, right?
Right. When I told CJ, I said, "Hey, I'm looking at this race in Thailand." He's been to Thailand several times, and he says, "Where is it in Thailand?" I said, "It's in Pai." He says, "Let's do it." He says, "That's the most beautiful part of the country. Are you kidding me?" He says, "Done, done, and done." So it'll be the two of us that go. There's another runner who I've shared a lot of miles with at a number of different races, Anna Robbins from Atlanta, Georgia. And you know how ultra runners are. They start talking about potential races coming up, and next thing you know, someone else hears about what you're doing. And Anna said, "You know what? I'm going to Thailand too." So Anna's coming with us. We actually had a couple of other runners too that were seriously thinking hard about it. Who knows? We might see them there as well. So, and in fact, Anna Robbins, she will be going for her fourth Cocodona finish coming up in 2026. But once she signed up for the Thai 500, the Thai 500 notified her that she is the only female runner signed up for the Thai 500. Apparently, everybody else is a male. Okay,
Wow.
and
How many people are there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. We haven't seen the entrance list, but so the joke was, well, Anna, you are now famous. You will be
Wow.
famous. When you finish this one, you will be the only female runner to ever have finished the Thai 500. I think that this is actually the first time that they're doing this 500-kilometer race.
Okay.
It's also tied in with Torx, Torx. It's the group that puts on the Tour de Jean, that
Sure.
amazingly difficult race in the Italian Alps. But so I figured, hey, if Torx is working with them as an organizer, I think it's probably a pretty good race. It's
Yeah,
going to
I
be a
think
tough
you're right.
race because the elevation, I think, is somewhere around 75,000 feet, 25,000 meters. And that's over double or maybe about double of what the Arizona Monster was.
Yeah, and 300 miles, that is insane. Yeah, Anna's 42, so that's good. She's got some good goat energy. She's done Tahoe 200, Cocodona a handful of times, the Summit. She did the Monster. Yeah, okay, she's right. Yeah, she's a great. She'll be a great collaborator.
Very experienced, young and
for sure.
strong, and she's very good at the art of distraction.
The Tour de Jean, of all the races I've heard of and videos I've seen and studies that I've done, like Tour de Jean seems like the most insane, wonderful, overcrowded, difficult, hard to predict. Why in the world would you do it? Perfect race. Like I don't have a bucket list, but it's on my bucket list for sure.
Anybody who wears the X from Tour X, anybody who wears the X from Tour de Jean, deep respect for that person, no question about it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think they allow pacers there. Like, a lot of the U.S. races will allow pacers about 50 or 60 miles in. Not so at the Tour de Jean, and not so at the Thai 500. No pacers are allowed. They do allow a crew, and so CJ will be there as a crew person, but no pacers. So it can be a little more difficult without somebody else with a clear and present mind helping you through some of those trails.
Yeah, I think the mind's going to be everything. Let's take a detour for just a couple of minutes talking about lawyering, because you did it for so long, and as have I. And I think both from a litigation, a transaction standpoint, mediation, arbitration, there's all kinds of scenarios where, as a lawyer, I've had the opportunity to step aside, think about the problem, meditate on it somehow, do things that allowed my brain to work out problems without me trying to force it. And so when I get out on the trails, and I'm still practicing, when I get on the trails, I don't have to flip a switch and say, now I'm going to think about my lawyer issues. But when I'm out there running, it pops into my head and I'll be like, oh, that's exactly the right approach. And I'm out there talking to myself thinking, yes, that's how I'm going to do it. Does any of that happen to you? Has it happened to you in the past? And how, if it has, have you applied that in these long, go hard, go deep 200-mile races?
Yeah, some of the most clear things come into your head while you're running. And you have to somehow capture that, because they don't come to you when you're sitting around the house doing things that are important or watching television or whatever it might be, but they do come to you when you're on the trail. And there are many times, my legal vocation was trial litigation. I would try a lot of jury cases in Detroit. And so I was in front of a lot of juries. And oftentimes my fellow runners, when I would have a jury trial coming up, my fellow runners who I'd run with on a regular basis, they became basically my sounding board. Now, I wouldn't necessarily share private information that shouldn't be disclosed to them, but I would certainly give them the scenario of what a case might be. And they loved these stories. They loved hearing about what was going on. And then I would actually ask them for feedback. Tell me your feedback on this scenario. Am I going to lose this case or am I going to win this case? And then you get different perspectives back and forth. But yeah, you get a lot of, and actually some great ideas from them, from fellow runners while you're running. So yeah, it's you can get some pretty clear ideas when you're out running. For some reason, I don't know what it is physically or mentally, but the mind seems to be very, very open while you're running.
Well said. Yeah, I found that too. I think when I was a younger man and wasn't running much, a lot of great ideas came in the shower. Now that I became older and start running a lot more in the shower, I'm just showering. But when I go on the trails, that's when the ideas come.
Right.
Okay, thanks. I really wanted to hear about that. I'm very interested in your embrace of 200 miles at your age and with your attitude and with your prior vocation, because I can relate to all of it, Paul. So thank you for this conversation. It's been really good. I am particularly excited at 62 to run 100K, and a couple months after that, run my first 100-mile race. And what I want to talk about, though, is a couple miles after that, while I'm still 62, because why not? Life's too short. I'm going to run my first 200, and I'm going to tackle Bigfoot. And you did Bigfoot in 2023, and you've got enough perspective and enough of a developed palate for a person in their 60s running 200-mile races. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute here and just tell me all about Bigfoot, the race, your experience, all of it.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about Bigfoot, but before I tell you about Bigfoot, okay, so from what I hear, you're going to do 100K, then you're going to transition to a 100-miler, and then you're going to go to the 200-mile distance. Okay, now, I'm going to throw out an invitation for you. You don't have to say yes. You don't have to say no, but I'm going to throw out an invitation for you right now to think about. Okay. In 2026, I'm on the entrance list, not on the wait list. I actually got off the wait list for the Cocodona 2026. Okay. I have an opening for a pacer for the Cocodona 2026. So my invitation to you is to join my crew and to pace me for 2 or 3 or however many segments you want at the Cocodona 2026. This will give you basically a sort of a close-up look of what the 200-mile race is all about, not only from the runner's perspective, because you'll be pacing me, but from the crew's perspective, because you'll see CJ and the rest of the crew. My son Jeff will be there as well. He's a pacer. Hopefully my brother-in-law Jonathan will be there as well, the crazy singing pacer. But so think about that as Bigfoot, I believe, is in August of 2026. So this will be 3 or 4 months before Bigfoot. And you'll be able to actually inject yourself into a 250-mile race and see what that thing is all about. I think it's going to be really eye-opening for you and will actually help you. I don't know whether you've got your crew lined up for Bigfoot or who you plan in terms of pacers and that type of thing. Now, that's the invitation. Okay, so think about that. Bigfoot, 200 miles.
Wait, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you pick that up in the headphones where I said, fuck yes, I'm in. Thank you very much. I accept that invitation. I'm down, of course. April 18th, I finished Leona 100. It'll be my first 100 that I'm finishing. So within a month, I'm going to be there. I'm happy to show up at Cocodona. I will happy to be of service any way I can. But hell yes, I'll be a pacer, help the crew, whatever you need. What an invitation. Absolutely, I'm in. Now, did you hear that one?
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Excellent.
I don't know if you know Troy Ide. Last name is E-I-D. He's a great attorney out of Colorado, and he's got a great legal practice involving the indigenous people.
Okay.
But Troy, I think he's over the age of 60. I think he might have just recently turned 60. But Troy is an accomplished long-distance runner. Troy will be also there pacing during Cocodona 250.
All right.
So it's a little scary getting, more than 1, 2, 3 attorneys together. It's a little scary when you do that, okay? But it should be a lot of fun. Bigfoot. Bigfoot is
Bigfoot.
Actually, in my opinion, of the destination trail races, destination trails being Candace Burt as the organizer and sort of the founder. She's sort of the impetus of all these 200-mile plus races.
Yes.
I mean, we can blame it all on Candace Burt for doing these crazy things. And she's got some amazing races out there. The one that I love the most, honestly, is Bigfoot.
Okay.
She's got Tahoe, she's got the Moab 240, she's got the Arizona Monster, and so on. But boy, there's something special about Bigfoot because you're basically running around Mount St. Helens and all the amazing things around there. The views are spectacular. Mount Adams, you run by Mount Adams and you finish not too far away from Mount Rainier. Just a very, very beautiful course, but very, very difficult. It is a difficult course because you have a lot of climbing and up and down, and you've just got to stay with it. The year I did it, we had a very hot finish. When we finished the race, the temperatures down in the valley were in excess of 100 degrees. So, and there's some very dangerous sections of it. I know my pacer, Jeffrey, my son Jeffrey, at times at nighttime, he would tell me, he says, Dad, he says, we're on the edge of a cliff. Okay, you can't see what I see, but there is a false front on your left side. If you're going to fall to the right. Don't fall to the left. And I'm known for falling multiple times during a race, hitting a rock, stumbling, whatever it might be, getting bloody knees, bloody elbows, what have you. So he'd tell me, make sure you fall to the right. And he's literally behind me, making sure that he's guiding his father to the right, because he knew if I went off the left, it was going to be a bad situation. And he's a golfer and actually a really accomplished golfer. And he said, it's like the false front of a golf green. Okay. You don't want to hit your ball there because it's not going to go where it should go. He says, that's a false front along the trail. Don't go there. So there's some sections that are like that. Okay. There's also some very, very difficult climbing sections that we hit during the day. There was one where I'm trying to think of it'll come to me, think of the name of this climb, but I know that it was sort of an up and down, and you're back up and you're back down, and it was all day long. And we finally hit sort of a false peak, and we'd been chasing another runner and a pacer, and we finally caught them at this false peak, and we were ready to pop the champagne bottles, and they were so excited. We were so excited. And Jeff turns to me, he says, this is not the end. We've got a long way to go. But no, you will love this. By the way, if you have a crew, clearly it is a challenging course for crew. They will do a lot of driving. CJ drove probably over 1,000 miles crewing me, just trying to get to the next aid station and the different reroutes and things like that. You're basically in the mountains. He did an amazing job staying up with me and crewing me, but it's a very, very challenging race to crew for sure.
In all of your longer races, aside from the ones where you first did with CJ together, have you done it always with a crew? You ever gone solo, just with drop bags?
Boy, that's a great question. I think I've always had crew. Now, I can tell you this, that even though I do have crew at every race, I mean, sometimes I think at Bigfoot, it was just myself and CJ that flew in for the start, and then Jeffrey, my other son, actually flew in midstream during the race and then connected with us during the race. But I think I've always had crew, but my philosophy on these races is you never know for sure whether crew will be able to make it to the aid stations where crewing is allowed. So if the aid station allows for a drop bag, I will have a drop bag prepared for every aid station that it's allowable, because I just never know for sure whether they can make it. Like at Moab 240, there was a one aid station on the other side of the LaSalle Mountain Range where I had a drop bag there. And I arrived at that aid station, I think it's called Geyser Pass, and no crew. And I didn't know it, but our crew vehicle had got stuck in some sand, and they literally couldn't get to the aid station. Fortunately, so CJ stayed with the vehicle. Jeffrey actually hitchhiked and found a ride with another runner's crew, got into the Geyser Pass aid station, and I actually piled into the back of this other vehicle for a half an hour nap. This other crew member, his runner was still up on the mountain somewhere, and the cutoff time was coming very close for her. She probably was not going to make it. So he said, pile in the back of my vehicle, we're good. By the time I actually left that aid station, CJ had made it there with the vehicle. But again, I guess it's a matter of just making sure I have the stuff there. So I typically will have a drop bag at every aid station, regardless of whether crew's going to be there or not.
Okay, that's logistically, thank you for that, because it's hard to tell from people's Instagram feeds whether they religiously do that. But the level of detail that you've delivered in this conversation, these stories, would lead me to believe that if I was going to be a betting man, I would say, yeah, you're going to do a drop bag every time. So I think I like that. It makes sense. Let's talk about this before heading into, pickleball, but hang on a second. This is May, or let's say May of 2023, Cocodona, then August 2023, Bigfoot, that's 200 miles. Then that's August 2023, and then a handful of months we go through the winter months, and then Cocodona 2024, May, July 2024, Summit 200, October 2024, Moab 240, and then a couple of months, April 2025, Arizona Monster 300, May 2025, Cocodona 250, and then you did the Huron because it's Michigan and you love it. So you can't do that, Paul, unless you've got some kind of build-up, and in my mind anyway, there's a fitness level and a commitment level that you're doing these 200s, right? So it seems like you're as I look through the ultra sign-up, I'm imagining that training blocks that you have to maintain. Is that what's happening? And are you still on that kind of trajectory and constant state of preparation?
The answer is absolutely yes. You have to stay in shape. There clearly is time for recovery after a finish is over. If it's a 200-plus mile race, you have to have some recovery time because you simply can't get out there. I mean, the first week you're in a fog. Your brain isn't working properly. You're sleep deprived. You're fatigued. You're trying to get some motivation to keep moving. But you know that you have to get back. You know that you've got a race coming up in 2 or 3 months or less that you've got to get ready for. Between the Arizona Monster in April, and Cocodona 250, from the time I finished to the time I started, it was 3 weeks. Okay, so there's not a lot of time. Basically, you're fit enough to do it. You don't need a whole lot of training after you've run 300 plus miles at the Arizona Monster and then jump into the Cocodona 250. The question is whether or not you've recovered. One of the things that I face when I finish a race like this is the numbness that I get in my toes and at the bottom of my feet, so that when I try to get out and start running again, start moving again, you can that sense of tingling and the numbness that comes. Jeff Garmeyer, one of the OGs, the original gangsters of the Cocodona 250, he's finished every one that there is to run. He calls it, I believe, Christmas toes. Your toes are numb until Christmas. So, but it's that numbness that you face, and so you have to recover. But in my view, I think it's really important to get a race on the calendar. Okay, I don't want to finish a race and not have something out there that I have a goal to get to. I want to have that on the calendar. In fact, I want to try to set my year of races as quickly as I can. Like right now, I've got 3 races lined up for 2026, including the summit in July. Mm-hmm. But I'll probably put a couple of more on that calendar so that you're running a 200-plus mile race every 2 or 3 months. And with those goal races out there, it literally forces you to orient your mind, to focus your mind on what you have to do. Okay, so I finished Cocodona 250. Okay, in 3 months, I'm going to be in the mountains of Colorado running the Summit 200. So you focus yourself, got to do this, got to stay fit. And sometimes you may not be able to run, or you might just be able to walk, but you got to get out the door and you got to do it. Or maybe you're going to switch it up and try to get some cycling in. Any way to get the cardio in, you got to get it in.
I think that's a perfect setup, although I can imagine a whole separate conversation over pizza, coffee, or whatever, those 1 month between your body for the first time, the pounding of Arizona Monster, all the excitement, the adrenaline, and it's literally 4 weeks, May 5 to June 7th. I mean, April 4 to May 5, 1 month before Cocodona again. Now you have Cocodona number 4 coming up during that time, so you've already done there before. You love this race. It's a part of your bones. You successfully got over the Arizona Monster, celebrating destination trails. All that energy is with you. But just for 1 minute, though, tell me, what did you learn about your body in the recovery of Arizona Monster within that first week? Because I'd imagine that's when all the learning happens, because Cocodona is right in front of you.
Yeah, the probably the biggest thing was I don't need to train for Cocodona 250. I've already done 300 plus miles. I don't need to go out and do some serious elevation work on a local mountain. I don't need to run a 100-mile week. In fact, that might even hurt me more than it will help me. What I need more than anything else is I need the body to recover. I need to sort of shift away from that vertical down the trail running that I've been doing for quite a bit. And you mentioned the word pickleball, something to divert me, something that still is physically challenging, something that you can do, but maybe is a diversion from what I've been doing. So any way to keep the body moving, that to me is the key.
I think you're right. So that takes us right where I want to go, where I kind of want to finish, and that is, let's finish with grandkids and pickleball. So clearly CJ and your son's like, are there looking out for you, but they're close, and I love that. So talk about pickleball. And when you said it, when I heard you say it first on the podcast, I'm like, pickleball, come on, man, as though it was a chore, as though it was something you'd have to click the box off, but that it's not that at all. So talk to me about that diversion of exercise, CrossFit, cross training, how it works, and then tell me about lifting grandkids up, how that helps too.
Yeah, so pickleball is an interesting sport. I had never played it before until about a year ago. And in fact, CJ began playing it about a year ago, and I didn't fall in love with it like he did, but he became passionate about this sport. And the more passionate about it that he became, and the more he talked about it, and the more videos he was showing me, I began playing it more and more and ended up being part of a couple of groups, pickleball groups, and basically got sucked into this sport, and it can suck you in so easily. I don't know, have you played pickleball?
I played it once, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I thought I got it, but after that, and it
Yeah.
took off. That was amazing. But what's
Yeah,
the name of the there? What's the name of that? What's your you refer to yourself as a doubler, a dupler, or what's a duper? Like what are those? What is
right.
that
So
language?
right. So in the pickleball world,
Okay,
okay, there is a rating system. And the rating system is put on by an organization called DUPR, D-U-P-R.
okay,
Don't ask me what that stands for, but I'm
okay,
sure it stands for something. But it is a rating system where they rate you in terms of, I don't know what the lowest score is, maybe 1 or 2 or what have you, but it
yeah,
might go up to 6 or 7 and that type of
okay,
thing. The higher the number, the better you are. And they rate you in terms, and one of the ways that they rate you is when you play against another player, whether you beat that player or what the score is of that. And I can't give you all the specifics as to how they rate it. In fact, you get a lot of complaints from pickleball players going, I think my duper rating should be higher than they really rate me, that kind of thing. Honestly, from my perspective, I could care less what my duper rating is, as long as I can be somewhat competitive with the people that I'm playing with. But so I think my duper rating is probably somewhere between like a 3 and a 3.5. And I actually play with a group in Arizona where we are all sort of rated within that 3.5 rating section, which is not an elite rating. It's basically your average Joe or Jane that's out there playing pickleball and trying to do it for more of the physical exercise and the fun of playing with other players. But so from my perspective, I found pickleball as a great sort of alternate from having to run long distance. Okay, I will still try right now. For example, today I got up at 6 o'clock and joined 3 other players out on the court at 6:30, and we played a couple of hours of pickleball. After the pickleball, I went out on the trail and got in another 6 or 7 miles in. So it was a great morning of exercise. Or yesterday I got in like a 9 or 10 mile run. So you can piggyback your run on the pickleball exercise, the pickleball court games. And pickleball is a little bit different, obviously, than running because you're more of that side-to-side movement, more of you're using a lot of different muscles than you would otherwise. So I find it to be a great diversion from running. And because CJ is such a pickleball aficionado now, and he's got his duper rating is, believe me, way beyond mine. He's actually very competitive against some of the good players. But we've sort of made a pact, a commitment that on one of these 200-mile races, we're going to step off the course somewhere in the middle of the course, maybe 100 miles in, and we're literally going to play a game of pickleball, okay? And then we're going to step back on the course. We actually thought about doing that at the Summit 200, which has a pickleball course right past maybe coming into Breckenridge. I think it's part of the Breckenridge community there.
Okay.
They have a pickleball court there. At Cocodona, near the Fain Ranch aid station, maybe not too far from there, there is a pickleball court that we have our eyes on, maybe for the Cocodona 2020. It may be the segment you might be pacing, so work on your pickleball skills.
I'm going to go get into that pickleball right now. I'm not going to mess around. I think I love tennis, but because it was good on my knees and my joints, it was good. But I was never that good, efficient with it. Pickleball does give you the opportunity to do that. I like that. Before I talk about your why of running, let's talk about grandkids as they get older. I think I heard you say that some of your grandkids are running now. Like, have you inspired your family members to like keep moving?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wasn't me that inspired them, but they are very, very good at what they do. They actually live in Florida. They actually live in the Tampa Bay area right now, and they are very accomplished runners, long distance runners. The oldest, she actually, as a sophomore, came in first place in the state of Florida for cross country. And so she's very, very fast at the long distance. She has a great kick at the end. The sophomore is also very accomplished. She's right on the heels of her older sister and is very fast. And then the youngest just ran a 16-plus mile cross-country run. So in the 8th grade level, he's actually competing with some of the high school students. So these kids are very fast. But I think they get it not from me, but they get it from their dad and from their mom. Both their dad and their mom are very good runners themselves. In fact, we used to love to kid them because we think that they're probably the fastest family in Florida because they run as a family. Literally, they're out the door early in the morning, all 5 of them running together, competing against each other, I really think. But both mom and dad are super fast. In fact, sometimes they would sign up for a local 5K or 10K, and the 5 of them would always take first place in whatever age group they were in. They were always first place. So
that's a good family
I would joke with them.
memory.
They are definitely the fastest family in Florida, at least in my mind. I'm hoping when I go down to the Cross Florida 200, we're planning to be able to connect with them because they won't be too far away from the race. I'm fairly certain that they will not be in any way pacing me during the race because fall season for cross country is a very busy season, and they are very involved in it.
Yeah.
They inspire me.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. They inspire you, and I'm sure you inspire them. But I would invite you to grab that image off of the ultra sign up for that race and send that image to them because it is the coolest image. Like, oh, no, I can't do it that one time. I think I'm busy that weekend. Here's where I'll be, though. If you need me, here's where I'll be. I just love it. All right, Paul, this has been so fantastic. Really enjoyed our conversation today. You've been doing it long enough. You're somebody to watch and be inspired by. I'll definitely see you at Cocodona. But the question I like to hear from people, because as we get older, has your why we run, has it changed? Has it morphed? Has it evolved over time? How?
That's a really, really tough question. I think the answer is yes, it has. I mean, my first race was, let's see whether I can actually finish a marathon without dying. Okay, I accomplished that.
Yay!
And then it became more of time, trying to run a faster marathon, trying to be more competitive in the road marathon world. And then it began this transition into my late 50s and 60s where it became a new thing, these trail runs. And really now the why is adventure. Looking for something new, looking for something that I enjoy doing, and something that you really can't talk to too many people about because they don't get why you would ever spend a week out in the deserts of the Tucson area in Arizona and run 300 plus miles. But these long distance races become a very, very amazing experience where life is compressed and you go through some amazing ups and downs during 5-6 days that you otherwise would not experience. You also build some amazing, strong relationships, long-term relationships with other runners and the pain and suffering that they go through. And you see them go through this. So it becomes really, the best word for me to describe it would be adventure. And I'm really happy that you will be at Cocodona in 2026 because all of your viewers, all of your listeners will be able to see where you're at in 2026 and be able to experience that adventure with me.
I'm glad to hear you say it. I was glad to look at your ultra sign up and realize that, you ran 100K before you turned 62, but then you ran a great 100K when you did too. So I'm inspired, Paul. Thank you very much. I'm glad we connected. I look forward to additional conversations, and we did it.
Thank you, Mark. It was a lot of fun. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.